Welcome to Capping Over Cocktails, a podcast that covers a new take on sports betting. Each week, we deliver you top analysis, picks, and news going on in the world of sports. Now, here's your host, Katie Mox.
Peyton Mansell, jailbreak blitz. He gets rid of it, and there's the pick. And here comes Virginia down the sideline. Deshaun Perry is going to end this game with a pick six.
Unbelievable ending.
That's the cover play for Virginia.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Capping Over Cocktails. I'm your host, Katie Mox, and of course I'm here every week with my favorite cappers, the boys from TroyWins.com, Troy West and Nick Raishi. Boys, how are you doing and what are you drinking?
Ooh, fabulous. Fabulous today. Got the old Basil Hayden's 12 year. So
Okay.
Sipping on that tonight. Celebrating a big Michigan win a couple of days ago against Ohio State. It kind of separated themselves, I think, from the rest of the Big Ten. So pretty excited over here.
Awesome. Troy, what you got?
I am doing a Reuben's IPA. It's a hazy IPA. I don't do them often, but it's a great little brewery here in a city called Ballard, Washington. A lot of great breweries out here in Ballard. So I'm doing a hazy IPA today and doing great.
I love it. And I am drinking a high noon, a grapefruit high noon. I just recently restocked my fridge after being gone for a while. So cheers everybody to Capping Over Cocktails.
Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So moving right on to hot topics, there is a lot to discuss today. I think probably the biggest news in sports and something that rocked all of us yesterday was the Tiger Woods crash. So, what do we know? And of course, what happens next? I'm sure everyone has heard by now, Woods suffered significant orthopedic injuries to his right lower extremities, including open fractures affecting both the upper and lower portions of the tibia and the fibula. And he crushed his ankle and it's just an absolute mess. Obviously, we are all happy that he is alive. I mean, especially so close to being a year from the mark when Kobe Bryant died. The thought of losing another legend, especially after just watching his unauthorized HBO documentary, really kind of understanding more about his life and how he was the man that he was. I had a newfound respect, appreciation for him, and also just kind of felt really bad about the way that the world treated him. So Troy, I'll kick it to you first. How do you feel about it? What were we going through yesterday? And what does this mean for Tiger? Is he ever going to play again? And does he have to?
He definitely doesn't have to. I think the legacy's definitely been marked without a doubt. I hope he does. I mean, Tiger's the kind of guy that's, this could be one of the, an Alex Smith type story, one of the greatest comeback stories in golf history. And I hope he does make a comeback and maybe gets on the senior tour and still has an impact there. I think this definitely hurts him, making an impact against the big boys, the Justin Thomases, the Koepkas. I'm just glad he's alive. Very touchy subject without a doubt. Glad he's alive, but it's going to be really interesting. These next, 12 to 18 months throughout this recovery would be interesting, but I fully expect Tiger to at least pick up a golf club again and get out on the course. I don't think this is a way that he wanted to go out. Such a horrific accident, Tiger doesn't seem to do well in a car. He hate to say that, but it's like, come on, guy, let's get somebody else behind the wheel at this point. But I really hope he picks up the golf club, makes a great comeback. It would be a great feel-good story just to see whether that's a year from now or 2 years from now. I really hope we see him out at Augusta again. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially watching him play with his son, Charlie, not that long ago. I mean, God, that was so cute. Mm-hmm. Nick, what do you think?
I mean, I had heart palpitations when I just turned on the screen and just saw the car and Tiger Woods. You immediately stop because you remember what happened with Kobe. It's just right around the same time of year. And I mean, I didn't know what to think. It was good to hear that he was okay. This is a story. I mean, God, Tiger, people forget that he's still tied with Sam Snead with 82 career wins. And I mean, I know that's the furthest thing that we're thinking about right now. But he's thinking about it. He wants to get back out there. But this was a big hurt to him getting back out and being healthy. Now I know he's got the body to do it, but he also doesn't have the body to do it. He talked about it with Jim Nantz that it's hard for him to get out of bed some days. So this type of injury, really sets things back a little bit for him and his recovery. And who knows what the long-term effects will be, on the rest of his body. So, I'm a huge Tiger fan. I mean, he's been great for the game. I know he's been great for a lot of the guys that are playing on tour right now. So I wish him, the best and hope he has a quick recovery. But him being alive and being able to be a dad for the rest of his life, I think that's the most important thing. You mentioned the golf with Charlie. I mean, I think that's what we thought about when Kobe died. We didn't really think about his basketball. We talked a lot about how he was such a great dad to those girls. And I think that's what's important right now. Yeah. And I'm happy that Tiger gets to continue living that life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, there was some speculation given his history. There's no suspicion of drugs or alcohol at this point. He might have just been rushing to work. It is a windy road that apparently has a lot of accidents. It was incredibly unlucky, but then of course lucky that he is still alive. So obviously, Tiger, we wish you well. If you come back on the golf course, great. If not, you're alive, and that's what's great. And we hope that I hope he doesn't go through the Alex Smith stuff where it gets infected and all that, because that gets really, really serious. So just wishing him well. All right, moving on to some football. Big Ben. All right, so Steelers president says that he had a good conversation with Big Ben on Tuesday, and they expect him to come back. They want him to come back. Of course, they're going to have to address the cap situation. Steelers, in order to get him back, it's $41 million for the hit for 21. So what do you guys think? I mean, obviously I'm not that big on Big Ben. However, when I think about who's the next one, Mason Rudolph, then yeah, maybe we stay with Big Ben. But Nick, I'll kick it to you first. Good move for Steelers. Is Big Ben done?
I mean, that's just it. I mean, you kind of started me off there with talking about Mason Rudolph. Is they don't really have a great succession plan. I mean, I think if they, could have maybe still go after some of the quarterbacks that are free agents now, I think that they could maybe cut ties with Ben, because I don't think that the answer is Mason Rudolph, and they have too much talent on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball to accept a Mason Rudolph to come in and take over. Now, he did a great job last year. I mean, they won some games, but this is the Pittsburgh Steelers we're talking about here. This is the Rooney family. I mean, they're not going to accept mediocrity. So I think they have to. I think he gives them the best chance to win with the guys that they have in the field. And I don't think that they want to waste what they have outside of Ben Roethlisberger on someone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Troy, what do you think? And how low do you think that Big Ben has to go here?
Yeah, Big Ben's been interesting to me. It's I have a love-hate with him myself. He's so bipolar from one week to the next. You see him come out and sling it for 5 touchdowns, and the next week he's throwing 5 picks. It just seems so inconsistent. His arm, he had the injury the year before. This year he came back, looked healthy at times. Other times didn't look healthy. So he's just such a wild card this late in his career. So I think he's definitely going to have to come down. I think Ben's the type of guy that will. I think he's at the point of his career. He absolutely wants to win. That Pittsburgh Steelers team I thought was Super Bowl contender until they got decimated by injuries last year on the defensive side of the ball. So that defense was the number one defense, throughout most of the NFL until they lost half the roster. So I think Ben's going to want to put themselves in a position much like Tom Brady did to be successful and win. And I think he's got 1 to 2 years left in the tank. So be interesting, but I like Big Ben. I think he's going to be okay, and I think he'll take a little bit of a pay cut to put them in a good position.
Yeah. Speaking of the Steelers, do we think that possibly J.J. Watt could go play with his brothers? Nick, what do you think?
That'd be pretty fun. Yeah. You don't see that happen too much in pro sports or the NFL, especially. So that would be pretty cool. He'd fit well in that defense too.
Yeah, Troy. You agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would think he'd want to. I don't think he needs to make any more money. He's talked about wanting to play for a contender. Defense is loaded. I don't see why he wouldn't want to. I hope he doesn't, for the sake of not as good, but I don't see why he wouldn't, truthfully. It makes sense from all parties.
Yeah, okay. We'll have to see how that goes. All right. Keeping it with the quarterbacks, obviously a huge story, Dak Prescott and his future.
Dak watch.
I know. Future or not. In Dallas. So the 2-week window to apply for the franchise tag is open. And, they've got, I think until March 9th, Dallas, to choose if they want to But it's kind of leaning like they're not going to. Troy, what do you think? Is Dak staying in Dallas? Do you think they're going to come together with some kind of long-term deal, or is this going to be the killer?
Yeah, this is just such a bizarre situation to me. I think it's just both sides just being so stubborn. But I truly, truly do believe, and I mean this wholeheartedly coming from a diehard Cowboys, and Dak Prescott, probably my favorite athlete of all time next to Tony Romo. I think he will be a Cowboy for life. I do. Whether it's this year or next year where he gets that long-term deal, I really sincerely believe that he's going to get this long-term deal. I don't know if he'll get it this year, but if he doesn't, I think he goes out on the field, proves it with that offense next year, and then gets the long-term deal. It's just it's a shame. I see where both parties are coming from. Dallas wants to pay him, but Dak's, what he's asking for right now to me is a little bit unreasonable. Puts that team and that franchise in a tough spot to pay him that much money. We're seeing it right now with Russell Wilson. He took the large deal. Seahawks can't really pay other players. They're finding themselves in a hard spot. Dallas, I think, sees themselves in a similar spot. But I think ultimately the deal will get done. I really do.
So you're more on Jerry Jones' side on this. You think that Dak is being a little bit. I mean, I just think these guys make so much money at the end of the day, and I think you got. There's something to be said about he got out with an injury, and look what happened to Dallas this year, right? So I think he kind of proved his worth to a certain extent, and they have been kind of jerking him around for a while now. So I don't think he feels the love necessarily.
Yeah, I think that I agree. I mean, they offered 4 years, 35 plus. So I think we're talking dollars and cents, and that's where I think both of these sides need to come to some sort of agreement. Because to me, when we're getting into that many years, that much millions, it's like, come on, let's make this happen. But I do agree, Dak's got the leverage right now, without a doubt.
Yeah, Nick.
Just, people don't talk enough about Dak's leadership. We talk about his skills on the field, but I mean, this guy came into the league and immediately took over that team and got earned trust in the locker room. Listen, to me, that's worth something in my checkbook. Like that's a stat to me. What does your leadership look like? Can you run our offense? Because you look at Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, these are guys that led their offense. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not comparing him to those great quarterbacks, but I think at some point you got to look at who you're getting as a person, and that's got to count for something extra. I think Jerry should, give him what he needs, give him what he's asking for. They've been negotiating for long enough now. So he's not just falling right over for him, but I think he's got to get this deal done. I mean, geez, you could tell, last year, Dak, if this is his heart, he would bleed the Cowboys. So this is your guy. Get the guy signed.
All right. Get the guy signed. You hear us, Jerry?
Get the guy signed, Jerry.
No doubt.
Let's talk NBA All-Star Snubs. Now, the biggest snub was going to be, of course, Devin Booker. However, I did just read that now he's in for the injured Anthony Davis. So that's good. However, there was a lot of players and other media personalities speaking out. LeBron James said that, he's the most disrespected player in basketball. But let's talk a little bit about that. How you guys feel about Devin Booker being snubbed, eventually coming back in. But then, Jimmy Butler, Mike Conley, Chris Middleton, there's a lot of people who were snubbed this season. So Nick, who do you think were kind of the biggest snubs and why? And do you think that the NBA kind of made good about throwing Booker in there, or was it just kind of too late?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard right now. I mean, when you look at stats right now, the stats of today are so much higher than they were of 5 years ago for All-Star games. I mean, scoring is way up. So, I mean, gosh, you're looking right now. I mean, you got over 50 players averaging 15 points a game. I mean, you have 35 players averaging 20 a game. So points are up, assists are up. The pace of the game is just so much faster that, guys are compiling stats. So what we thought was really great 5 years ago is just average now. I shouldn't say average, but it's just All-Star level now. So, I think you got to look at the stats too. I mean, there's a lot of really great offensive talent in the NBA right now, not so much defensive talent, but it is what it is. You get snubbed. I mean, there's only so many spots, but there's a lot of guys averaging a lot of points right now.
It's almost like the NBA is like the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. True.
As Troy takes a drink.
I got it.
Troy, what do you think of these snubs?
Yeah, I completely agree with Nick. The stats are just so inflated right now. I think the NBA and the NBA All-Star game to me is such a joke anyway, that I think they should just extend the rosters on both sides and try to get more people in because nobody wants to get snubbed. It's a good resume thing. Guys, when they, are making their pitch for the Hall of Fame, stuff like that, the last thing you want to do is look back at seasons like this and go, man, if I would have made it to the All-Star game that season, maybe I get in the Hall of Fame. So I just don't like it. I completely agree with Nick. The game itself, it's been a phony game for a long time. I mean, the scores are in the 170s, 180s. It's just ridiculous. So I would like to see if they're going to have the game, I think you're better off extending the rosters and getting guys like, Booker should have never been snubbed. Middleton's been a real nice, solid role player. And that's the other thing that gets overlooked as well is what kind of role are they playing on the team? We look so closely at stats. We don't look at wins. We don't look at the role that they're playing, all that good stuff. So I think they need to extend the rosters and get more of these guys in rather than snubbing people.
Agree or disagree that Devin Booker is the most disrespected player in the NBA, Troy?
I agree. I've actually this year, more than any other year, have really latched on to the Phoenix Suns. I'm a big Chris Paul fan. And that Phoenix Sun team's fun to watch. And Booker, I mean, that 1-2 punch, Paul and Booker with Ayton down low and the way Bridges is playing, Booker really gets that team moving. And the guy just doesn't get any credit. I think Phoenix, I wouldn't call them a small market team, but they don't really get a lot of national TV pub. And I think Booker's is getting defeated because of it.
Yeah, I would agree, except for when they played the Nets in the second half. Nick, agree or disagree? Most disrespected player in the NBA?
No, I mean, yeah, you've heard me say it before. I still think LeBron to this day is still the most disrespected player in the NBA. Can the guy get an MVP?
All right.
Well, can the guy get an MVP?
Can he get an MVP? That leads me to my next topic. So LeBron James, his minutes are up, right? I mean, he is playing a lot of minutes. He just played 43 minutes in Monday's overtime loss to the Washington Wizards at Staples Center. This is the team's third consecutive defeat. Obviously, Anthony Davis is out for at least 3 weeks. I think maybe there's a couple more weeks on that with an Achilles injury. Bron wants to step up. He's the kind of player that's going to step up. You think about the Lakers' history and Kobe Bryant and what kind of led him to his Achilles tearing. Is this a good or a bad thing? Because it doesn't seem to be helping the Lakers that LeBron is playing more minutes, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron's always, come out and said that, he spends over $1 million on his body. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't just work out and stay in shape. I mean, this guy understands the science of his body. I think he would come to, the coaching staff and management and say, listen, we're coming off the championship run that went late in the last season. I mean, I need a couple of games off. I mean, I think he's in tune to he knows what he's going to need in July. This year. So I think that if he felt he was being overused, he would say something about it. That's, I think he would do something like that. But yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, you see this happen every single time when a team wins a championship. They typically start slow. I mean, you played more games than the last, than any other team. I mean, you had no training camp this year. So if healthy, I don't see anybody beating that team. I mean, even the Nets. I mean, I think they have all the pieces. The Lakers this year, I would put them in a 7-game series over anybody right now. So,
all right. So maybe this is LeBron's year that he gets the MVP again.
He should.
Troy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the LeBron's biggest fan for different reasons, but no, this year he's definitely earned the MVP without a doubt. But I agree with what Nick's saying. But yeah, with Anthony Davis out, they're just not the same team. I mean, Anthony Davis really makes that roster go as well. You got to have the two of them on the court, in my opinion, to be successful. We're seeing, they played the Thunder very tightly. The Wizards go in and beat them last night. They're just not the same team when both those guys aren't on the court. So I would think, Frank Vogel would take a step back and shorten the minutes up. These games don't matter. They're getting in the playoffs. When you get in the playoffs, home court doesn't matter this year. We're not going to have fans. So I'm really surprised that they are pushing them to the limit right now. I really am. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep doing so, because right now you're just buying time. You're going to get to the playoffs, and that's when the season starts over there. So I'm really surprised that they're putting so much wear on the tires right now. I really am.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll just have to see how this works out. Big news out of where you are, Troy. So the president of the Mariners is stepping down. Talk to us about this and tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, Kevin Mather stepping down was actually did a little interview, a local interview out here in Bellevue, Washington, and just said some extremely unbelievable racial comments to some of his Japanese players. As far as saying their English sucks and he's tired of paying for their interpreters was one of the things he was quoted saying. So bad situation. The next day he steps down.
Good.
He's got players, Jared Kelnick, who's one of their best prospects, wants out of the organization.
Wow.
Players are wanting out. It's a bad deal right now. Yesterday was the first day they all reported to practice, and they had to put a lot of fires out. It's a bad situation out here in Seattle. Crazy to think that the president of the Seattle Mariners, 20-year president, part of the reason we haven't made the playoffs for 20 years, mind you, longest drought in sports history, not making the playoffs, is the Seattle Mariners. Goes to show you where the leadership was. Just a disgusting thing. I highly encourage people to read into this. This guy's obviously clearly been living under a rock over the last couple of years. But yeah, came out and very discriminate against many of his players, including his Japanese players. So
well, and right now there's such an increased rate of hate crimes against Asian Americans. There's absolutely no place for that in this country, and certainly not in sports. So I'm glad that he stepped down. I hope that they are able to turn the organization around. Nick, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I mean, just, diversity, equity, inclusion right now has to be at the top of every leader's list. It doesn't matter where you're at. I mean, at every level that has to be included. So disappointment. You cannot be in a position of power if you are not supportive of, equality.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, guys. So how do you feel about capping over some cocktails?
Love it.
College basketball odds to win the title. Who are the sleeper teams? And who has a lot of upside and value? Troy?
Yeah, I'm still riding kind of USC. They're playing incredible basketball right now. I mean, they just put the beat down on Oregon again. West Coast team that's just not getting a ton of credit right now. I think you can get these guys at, I want to say plus 7,000. I need to double check my odds on that, but they've got outstanding odds right now to win the tournament here. I had it right in front of me. USC, to me, plus 2,000, not plus 7,000, but still great odds. I think, right now they're 18-3. 18-3 is one of the better records in basketball. They got great guard play. They're well coached. They're good down low, very athletic. They can shoot. Their inside out game's great. USC is one of my sleepers. Creighton, West Virginia, both those teams are playing great basketball. Bob Huggins just never goes away. The guy's he's like a fine wine. He gets better with age. Well, and West Virginia's playing better than ever right now. They're playing really good ball. Got another road win yesterday at TCU. So again, like I said from day one, I'm riding Gonzaga all the way till the finals. I don't think anybody's beating them. They're who my money's on since day one, but those are a couple of my sleepers without a doubt.
All right, Nick, who are your sleeper teams?
Yeah, these are always fun. Troy started off with USC, and that kind of plays into, what I always look for out of a sleeper team. And that's, do you have that superstar player, a guy that can, get a bucket whenever you want? They have who's likely the number 2 player in the NBA draft, and Evan Mobley, USC. So yeah, that's a guy that can get a basket anytime he wants. I look at a team like Kansas, and it's crazy that I say Kansas is a sleeper this year, but, they didn't really start off the year that well. A lot of teams may have written them off, but, they still have a championship winning coach in Bill Self. And, they have both inside and outside presence with David McCormick and Christian Brown, who can shoot the 3. And then, senior guard Marcus Garrett has really started to get going. So, to get 3,500 on Kansas, they're probably going to end up somewhere on the 4 or 5 line, which means they, can make it. They won't have to see the 1 seed until the Sweet 16. So yeah, it gives you a little fighting chance there. And then one that's interesting to me, and I don't know if they'll actually get in, but it's Oklahoma State. And they have some appeals going right now with the sanctions and the ban on postseason play, but it's likely that the court isn't going to hear their appeal in time, which means they'll actually be eligible to play, and they would for sure get in. So if they get in, that would be interesting to me with Cade Cunningham. He's just an absolute superstar in college basketball. I think in my mind, no doubt the number 1 pick. That's a guy that if he gets it going, they can score at will. So that'll be interesting to me to see if, if they get in. I love teams out of the Big 12 and the Big 10. I think that the gauntlet that they've played over the last 2 months, I think is something that, will keep them battle tested. They can prove that they can win games down the stretch and in the half court. So I would look at teams maybe, kind of lower in the Big 10 and Big 12, just based on their strength of schedule. So.
Okay. Good to know. Good tips. All right, guys. So with so many new sports books out there, how do you pick the right one, Nick?
Yeah, gosh, it seems like every time you watch a game, I mean, there's multiple sportsbook commercials out there. And I mean, there's so many different ones that are offering, huge bonuses, reduced juice, all that stuff. I think the big thing is, a lot of people are getting tricked by is, they're signing up for these bonuses and not realizing that there's rollover requirements to doing that. You can't just put 500 in and you get, a $2,000 bonus and then you bet one game and you can withdraw it. So I think it's just making sure that you read the fine print on their rollovers and their bonuses. I mean, those bonuses are out there really just to get you hooked in. It's probably the most addictive drug, I guess that's out there. But yeah, and then just ease of use on the website. I mean, I think that's a lot of times when you're betting games, like you could be wanting to get a game in like 1 or 2 minutes before, and you got to hustle up. So just ease of use on the app, I think, is important to me anyways, as far as a good sports book.
What are your favorite sports books?
I still use Heritage Sports, which isn't a US sports book, but I've been using it for 21 years. It's kind of one of those things that I've been using for so long that I don't want to quit it. But I have used the BetMGM out here, and I like that one as well. So I haven't tried too many of them yet, but I'm certainly starting to look into them a little bit more.
Yeah, BetMGM had a huge problem for the Super Bowl, though. Did you guys read about that?
I heard about that.
It went down and they weren't able to pay people out, and they had security guards and I think they paid everyone out online, but there was maybe a little bit of delay in the casino. Troy, what do you think? Do you agree with Nick? Are there some kind of things that you look for in finding a sports book?
Boy, it has gotten tough out there, especially in Washington. We're limited so much where we can't really sign up with the offshores. So, even guys like myself, I would probably lean towards like the Pavados, the ones that really have that strong backing. Because I mean, gosh, I'm involved in a lot of different forums and blogs, and I saw another guy that took a pretty reputable, I think it was mybookie.ag, even took a pretty reputable book for 10 grand, and his account cut down and he can't get a hold of him. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'll double check. I don't want to throw mybookie.ag under the bus, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so for me, gosh, I mean, I highly recommend finding runners in Las Vegas personally. I mean, you don't get live action, you don't get the quick fix or the last minute stuff as much, but I don't know how it is in LA, Katie, but out here in Washington, you really can't sign up for the DraftKings and the FanDuels and the Barstool sports books. You just don't have access to them. So you really, really got to be careful out there.
We don't have access to any of that too. So it's all offshore, or, you do have access to like DraftKings, but only for fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? I mean, you live in two progressive states like Washington and California. I'm surprised that they don't have access to that.
For a state that legalized marijuana, I would think that at some point soon we can legalize sports betting. It's taking over the world, and the state can make so much money. And I think now with the pandemic, the state is broke. Okay. That's a very easy way to get money back. And I know that gambling is a slippery slope. Obviously you have to be responsible, but it's no different than having a cocktail or smoking some weed.
Yeah, totally.
Anyways, moving on to the Mox Minute, we're going to talk about my favorite thing to talk about, Jimmy G. And I'm just going to gloat here for a little bit, just because I've taken a lot of heat over the season. Every time, a new quarterback came up, whether it was, Carson Wentz when he kind of became available, or of course, Dak Prescott, basically any time that there was someone that was going to be traded, everyone was like, the Niners are getting rid of Jimmy G. Niners are getting rid of Jimmy G. Jimmy G's awful, yada, yada, yada. I have always been a Jimmy G believer. Now, again, I'm not saying he's the greatest quarterback that's ever lived. I think he's right for the 49ers right now. Well, John Lynch was on a podcast just the other day, and they asked him, do you expect Jimmy Garoppolo to be the starter in 2021? And he said, Absolutely. Now, of course, there was the caveat as if he stays injury free. Well, I don't know what's going to happen to him between now and when the season starts. But I think it's safe to say that Jimmy G is the starter for the Niners next season. Thank you very much. And if he does stay healthy, I will acknowledge that for the last 3 seasons, he has been rather injury prone. Although I kind of don't count this last season because everybody was injured. So it's hard to just single one guy out. That said, I'm happy. I'm really happy about this. Any thoughts, Nick? I know you've been one of my biggest critics here.
No, honestly, listen, I'm glad they make a decision. I think that's it. When in the off season, it's one person that you got to have as is set in stone. You either got to know he's gone or know you're keeping him, and that's your quarterback. I think that's a year-long process. So I'm just glad that he came out and say, that's our guy right there. I think that makes things good, going into the draft. It allows you to have a game plan for what you're looking to do if you're not drafting quarterbacks. So I think it's good to have a solid, yes, this is our guy.
Yeah. Troy, any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think the judges is out for Jimmy G, right? I mean, I don't think he's proven himself in the league yet, but I don't think he's disproved himself. He's made Super Bowl. Yeah, he kind of reminds me of a Trent Dilfer. I mean, just a game manager, got to the Super Bowl, actually won a Super Bowl with the Ravens, but the Ravens had a great defense that year, much like the 49ers. So I don't know if you can put your team on Jimmy G's back and get to a Super Bowl. I think if you put the right pieces around him, I think he's a great game manager for the most part.
I think that's for everyone. If Patrick Mahomes didn't have all those weapons, would he be as powerful? We don't know.
Not as powerful, but hey, we're seeing it with Nick's guy, Tom Brady. I mean, obviously he's in a different class, but I think there's certain quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes that really, with or without talent, give you an incredible chance to win. I don't think Jimmy G's quite in that category yet, but he fits the 49ers roster pretty well. They are going to need to go out and add a couple of weapons. I mean, you got Deebo Samuel, you got Kittle, but I think after that, they weaken at the wide receiver spot. So they're going to need to go out and get him somebody. They're going to need to give him a little bit of help. And that defense is weakening a little bit as well. So we'll see.
It is in the O-line a little bit too. But hey, right now I'm excited. Jimmy G coming back 2021. The Niners revenge tour. We took a year off. We were going to have a revenge tour, and then of course we all got injured. So the revenge tour 2021 will be kicking off come August. That's it for Capping Over Cocktails. Thank you so much, everyone who joined, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.